Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 16th year of Chungi, the leap sixth month, and the 16th day by the heavenly calendar. Tim Elder getting used to saying that, leap sixth month. But we only have 2 more weeks of saying that. So anyway, it'll happen in 3 years from now again, but not the sixth month. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chenaguk Gyeongjimun, and let's take our trip around the kingdom right now. In Chongpyeong, Tennessee, we have 67 degrees and clear, getting to 85 today, intervals of clouds and sun with a thunderstorm in spots this afternoon. And tonight, low of 63 under clear skies. And in father's hometown of Cheongju, North Korea, North Pyongan province, what is today North Korea, 80 degrees right now, mostly cloudy, getting down to 66 tonight, and tomorrow very warm with plenty of sunshine, high of 88. Cheonggyeong Palace, Northeast Pennsylvania, 51 degrees. We're getting kind of chilly now, isn't it? 51 degrees. And sunny, and today 85 degrees for a high, plenty of sunshine tonight, mainly clear and a low of 55. Okay. And then in Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 74 degrees, mostly clear. Mainly sunny and very warm today, high of 97. Tonight, clear and low of 72. And at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, now 72 degrees. And that is the low for the evening. For the night until tomorrow morning, and tomorrow it's going to have considerable cloudiness with a thunderstorm spots this afternoon, 82, and it is currently raining there, and the rain is supposed to continue for at least an hour. And at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, currently 86 degrees, mostly cloudy, overcast with a couple of showers tonight, low of 72, tomorrow high of 78, cloudy and humid, occasional rain in the afternoon. Ilan, Taiwan, currently it is 84 degrees under clear skies, overcast with a thunderstorm in spots this evening, tonight in parts of the area, low of 80, and tomorrow high of 94, mainly cloudy and humid, thunderstorm in spots in the afternoon. All right, let's go to Father's Word, and let's see where we are today. Okay. Book on True Love, Chapter 5, Section 2. How important is our life on the earth? Father begins asking that question. The life on earth only occurs once. It is a brief moment, but it only occurs once. If we were to compare life on earth to our eternal lives, it is nothing more than just a point, a speck. It is such a brief time, brief moment. And during this time, we must go beyond the physical life and prepare ourselves for the spirit world. And we must always have that thought and always stand in the center and control our physical bodies and subjugate those physical bodies. Okay? Unless we do this, we will not be able to reach completion, or some people say perfection. I prefer completion. You need to know this. Okay, praise God. All right. Yes, I'm on the completion campaign. All right, let's see what's going on today. Well, first of all, let me just fill you in on what happened with Wonju yesterday. As I mentioned yesterday at the King's Report, on Friday, she was called in, or she was subpoenaed to come in to be interviewed by the special counsel that is investigating alleged corruption by the former First Lady. And there are several special counsels working right now in South Korea, and sometimes hard to keep them straight. But as I mentioned, revenge politics is very much part of the culture here, not just in presidential politics either. But we'll go into that. So anyway, I don't know how long she was interviewed. Her news about her is not on the South Korean media's. It's not on their. Um, it's not on their list of priorities really. And so, of course, they reported that she was coming in, that she did come in, and there are a lot of photographs of her, sort of doing the perp walk, um, going past all the cameras and reporters shouting at her with questions and stuff like that. But anyway, just briefly, it appears that she was sent home yesterday after the interview, so she has not been detained or arrested. And um, what the media is saying is that she simply repeated the position that's been put out by Family Federation already, which is that this whole thing of bribing the former First Lady and indirectly then the president was something that the former World Mission Director Yoon did on his own, and that she had nothing to do with it. And of course, Yoon, for his part, who is, by the way, still in detention, he's still in jail. He, as we understand, through the media, is that he has been saying that, yes, I did give these gifts to the former First Lady through an intermediary. It was my intention to do that, but I was instructed to do so by my superiors, which, his superiors would be just two people. One would be one Jew. The other, of course, would be the big lady herself. So anyway, that situation is continuing, and I'm sure that there will be more on this in the coming weeks, days, perhaps days and weeks. I guess right now we're kind of wondering whether the big lady herself is going to be subpoenaed and will have to appear at the special counsel's office. We'll have to go through sort of that kind of a perp walk, not exactly a perp walk, but it's very similar, where cameras are rolling and reporters are shouting questions and why did you do this and do you have anything to say and all this kind of stuff. But that would be the logical, to an amateur, it would seem like the logical thing to happen as a next step. But we'll see how that works. We'll see how that goes. Yes, we'll take it one day at a time. All right. Meanwhile, President Trump has announced that he and President Putin will be meeting in Alaska on August 15th, a week from yesterday, to discuss peace in Ukraine, which is going to be a big step, I suppose. And of course, Zelensky will not be there. Putin refuses to meet with Zelensky under the current situation, current conditions. But we'll see what they come up with. I noticed that President Trump said that it'd be better if he preferred if they could have the meeting sooner, not have to wait for a whole week. But he said that people responsible for security have to have time to set things up there. After Butler, Pennsylvania, we can blame him for being conscious of the needs for security. President Donald Trump announced he will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15th as part of an effort to bring the war in Ukraine to a close. Be interesting to know where they'll be meeting. Be interesting if they meet on the Diomedes Islands. The Diomedes, of course, are two islands in the Bering Strait, and the international date line and the U.S.-Russian border runs between the two islands. It would be interesting if they were to meet there. But I think on the U.S. side, I think there is a small community there that lives on that island. It's a fishing village. Anyway, or someplace to sort of draw attention to a future Bering Strait bridge or tunnel. The highly anticipated meeting between myself as President of the United States of America and President Vladimir Putin of Russia will take place next Friday, August 15th, 2025, at the great state of Alaska, he announced on Truth Social on August 8th. Further details to follow. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The confirmation comes hours after Trump announced that he would be meeting Putin very shortly, and that a location for the face-to-face will be announced a little bit later. He said earlier in the day that increased military spending by NATO and new U.S. sanctions on nations that buy oil from Russia may have contributed to Moscow's agreement to the talks. We've been working on this one for a long time, Trump told reporters at the White House, adding that the talks to lay the groundwork for a ceasefire and negotiation were completed. Yeah, I think you have to give him credit for bringing about this meeting in the first place. It's something that certain Biden was not able to do, if he was willing, if he wanted to do that. But President Trump has had a singular focus on peace. And as he keeps saying, we got to stop the people dying. We got to stop the people dying. And the globalists, the warmongers, have been saying, "Oh, look, now Putin has won. He's won." Well, as I said at the beginning of this war, this is not a football game. It's not a baseball game. It's not any kind of game. It's not a matter of scoring points or even winning. It's a matter of stopping a war that should never have happened in the first place. Stopping a war that never should have happened in the first place. Okay? And it's a bad war, and we know that any sort of territorial gains that are made by anyone, they're always fluid. They may change in the future. Okay, it looks like Russia is going to get the Crimean Peninsula, at least for now, right? And they may get the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine, at least for now. But things always change, and I think as time goes on, we're seeing that borders mean less and less. And so I think the idea that it's not like we're playing a game of Risk, where it's a board game where you try to take over the world, basically, if you don't know what that is. It's not like that at all. But people are dying, and we need to stop the dying. And that is President Trump's focus. And I think he needs to receive a great deal of credit, even for just getting Putin to this meeting, and maybe increase NATO military spending. Maybe what else was quoted here? U.S. sanctions on nations that buy oil from Russia. Maybe, yes, may have contributed to it. And perhaps Xi Jinping made the call that I was suggesting. Maybe Xi Jinping made that call. Hey, come on, Vladimir, come on now. We can't afford any more sanctions from America. You gotta give us, you have to do us a solid here, or something like that. I don't know how communists talk. So the Kremlin said on Thursday that Putin would meet Trump in the coming days, after which Putin suggested the talks would be held in the United Arab Emirates. And it's interesting that's being held in Alaska because, Putin is there's an arrest warrant out for him from the International Court of Justice. And I think the U.S. is not a signatory to that, which would explain why this meeting can take place on U.S. territory. Just let me make sure of that. Is U.S. signatory TO1 to ACC? No, that's what I thought. Okay. The United States is not a member or state party to the International Criminal Court. International Criminal Court. Okay. Because it has not ratified the Rome Statute, the treaty that established the court. While President Bill Clinton signed the Rome Statute in 2000, the U.S. Senate never ratified it, and President George W. Bush later withdrew the U.S. signature and formally indicated the U.S. would not be a party to the treaty. So that's why it can take place in Alaska. And of course, it's also interesting it's taking place in Alaska because there are still people in Russia who say, hey, you know what? We got ripped off. We got ripped off. We never should have sold Alaska to these people. Um, and well, okay, sort of a seller's remorse there. I don't know. One might take it that President Trump is kind of rubbing Putin's nose in the fact that this is our land. But I guess Putin is not taking it that way. Maybe that's not a very widespread feeling in Russia, but I know there are some people who feel that way in Russia. Anyway, so let's see here. When asked if Putin and Zelensky could be signing a peace deal similar to Friday's pact between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the president was optimistic. I think my instinct really tells me that we have a shot at it, Trump said. The summit will be Trump's first meeting with Putin since he returned to the White House in January. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, visited Moscow earlier in the week and met with Putin for 3 hours of talks on Wednesday. Witkoff arrived in Moscow only days before a deadline set by Trump for Russia to make progress on a peace deal. The announcement of a face-to-face summit between the two leaders follows Trump's adoption of more coercive measures to get Moscow to come to the table, including imposing an additional 25% tariff on India for purchasing oil from Russia, raising the total rate to 50%. The new tariff rate on India is now the largest of the tariffs imposed on U.S. trading partners. Trump had said he would also implement severe tariffs on Russia if Moscow did not make progress on peace talks with Ukraine by August 9th. India has also been in the crosshairs of Trump's targeting of the BRICS coalition, a group of emerging market countries headlined by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In an August 4th Truth Social post, the president said that India is also using the Russian oil purchases to sell it on the open market for big products. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine, he said. India has defended the transaction as a means to provide its population with affordable energy because conventional supplies were diverted to Europe following the war in Ukraine, according to a statement by India's Ministry of External Affairs on August 4th. Yes. So anyway, maybe India has its excuses, and maybe all those excuses can be put to rest if this war can end. Of course, for the United States, it's important to the war end so that we can focus our attention on, yes, the Chinese Communist Party and its ambitions towards Taiwan, towards the South China Sea, and globally, quite frankly, Chinese Communist Party has global ambitions that the United States needs to stop and bring down and demolish the Chinese Communist Party. And we don't know how well it's going because the Chinese economy is in trouble right now. We know that, but economies can be in trouble and nothing come of them. And we had that situation where the bullying by someone against a 14-year-old girl was causing was the reason for some riots in Sichuan province. Let me see if I can get an update on that. So it looks like that the authorities have got that under control. So there's no real. Well, I see a couple of follow-up articles on that, but it looks like the unrest itself has been brought under control by the authorities, right? But it is it does point to the fact that discontent is simmering just below the surface in China, and it could pop up anytime, anywhere. But remember what happened in Tiananmen, right? And I'm sure that Chinese people are not allowed to speak about Tiananmen, but I'm sure that people who were alive in 1989 or old enough to remember 1989, June 4th, 1989, know exactly what happened in Tiananmen. And I'm sure that they've heard about that through word of mouth, at least, which is that, when push came to shove, the Chinese Communist Party called in the military and literally ran over people with tanks and heavy trucks and killed uh, perhaps tens of thousands of people there in one night, there on Tiananmen Square, right in the middle of Beijing, where all the tourists go to today. Ah, last Sunday, I was invited to give a sermon at the Sanctuary Church, the sort of headquarters Sanctuary Church in Seoul, and I don't know where it came from. Well, maybe I do. But I said to the congregation, you know that portrait that hangs on the Tiananmen, that's the gate, right? The squares. There's a square, then you got a gate there. Do you know that portrait that hangs on the gate? Of course, everybody knows it's a portrait of a Mao Zedong. It's a huge, gigantic portrait of Mao Zedong. And I said, we need to change that portrait. And then I pointed to the portrait that was hanging behind me on the stage. Just saying. Okay. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? Yes. I don't know where that came from, but it was not in my notes. My goodness. Yes, Father. Father, he likes to raise the bar. Yes. He likes to raise the bar. All right. Next story. Let's see here. Okay. And let's go here then to, oh yeah, let's do this one. Let's do this one next. The anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing, which is today. And of course, 3 days ago was the anniversary of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. Hold on a second here. Let me get this. First of all, let me show you only a screenshot. Okay. And then let me share that. Okay. Let me see if I can bring this up to a, yes, I can. All right. So every year, they have this ceremony once on August 6th in Hiroshima, and then 3 days later in Nagasaki. And of course, the two cities each has a museum, an atomic bomb museum. And I've been to both of them. I went to the Nagasaki one when I was in high school. We took a senior trip around Kyushu, and I went to the atomic bomb museum then, and Hiroshima also. I think I've been to the Hiroshima one a couple of times. But I don't necessarily recommend going there. I mean, they've created exhibits so that they're as shocking and as gory as possible, and the intent, the motivation behind the exhibits is to show that this the whole um, atomic bomb attack was very inhumane and caused a great deal of suffering. But taken alone, of course, that is true. A lot of people suffered. That is true. Although I would have to say that more people died in the firebombing of Tokyo earlier in 1945, in the spring of 1945, where napalm was dropped on the wooden houses of Tokyo and created a firestorm that killed tens of thousands, perhaps as many as 100,000 people in one night. Children, women, it burned hospitals, it burned schools, it burned everything. And so that was actually probably, I think, at least as sort of gruesome as the atomic bomb attacks in August. But there's no museum for that in Tokyo for sure. My objection to the atomic bomb museums in Hiroshima and Nagasaki is that they have no context. They have no context. If you only look at the museums themselves, it's as if Japan was simply minding its own business, and all of a sudden one day, somebody, they don't name exactly who, but somebody dropped a bomb for some reason, and it killed a lot of people and caused a lot of suffering and radiation sickness, and some people are still suffering. I think maybe still some people, maybe still, people who are alive then, or maybe even children of people who were alive then, are suffering from radiation sickness. Then there's no context, right? And uh, Nagasaki not so much, but especially Hiroshima has taken on this mantle of victimhood and sort of made it their mission to head the worldwide anti-atomic bomb nuclear weapons movement. And I object to that because um, it is clear that the atomic bomb actually saved a lot of lives, not only American lives but also Japanese lives. The Americans were going to use the napalm bombs on a lot of other cities, not just Tokyo. Actually, by August of 45, apparently America had bombed about 75% of the cities in Japan. And leading up to the planned invasion, they were going to continue bombing because the Japanese homes at that time were almost all built out of wood. And so napalm was in fact, napalm was actually developed, as I understand, for that exact purpose, to be used against Japan in World War II. Later, of course, napalm became very famous for its use in Vietnam, but it was originally developed for Japan. And a lot of people would have died. A lot more people would have died than did die in the atomic bomb attacks. Of course, providentially, Father has said that August 15th, if the war had gone on longer than August 15th, and a lot of Christians in Korea would have been killed by the colonial authorities there, the Japanese colonial authorities there. Also, if the war had continued, Russia certainly would have taken over the entire Korean peninsula. They may have invaded Hokkaido, and they may have taken a slice of the rest of Japan, or at least of Honshu as well. So the war needed to end, and it was a situation where the war needed to end now, no ifs, ands, or buts. And so the atomic bomb, in that sense, was morally justified. Of course, war is, I keep reminding you that I heard Father say, God hates war more than anything. God hates war more than anything. God hates it when his children are killing each other. But sometimes we create a situation where it becomes necessary for the sake of advancing God's providence. Yeah. And we know from our study of the principle that the Second World War and the blood that was shed in the Second World War set the providential condition, the indemnity condition for the returning Messiah to begin his public mission, which began on August 15th, 1945. So, yeah, this whole victimhood thing, I reject it. And they say, well, never again. Like we say never again about the Holocaust, they say never again about the atomic weapons. And fortunately, we've gone 80 years now without atomic weapons being used in a war or in a combat situation. And for a while there, it looked like this was going to happen in Ukraine. But it looks like we've pulled back from that. Praise be to God, but also Trump deserves a lot of credit on that. If next week's talks with Putin fail, or if the follow-up talks with Zelensky fail, then we will go back to the situation where atomic weapons may be about to be used in the Ukraine war. And not the big, the missiles, but some sort of tactical atomic weapons. But that would be that would be also be very, very bad, because it would sort of break the taboo. And for 80 years, we've managed to maintain this taboo against atomic weapons. And I think that's a good thing. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not sure. I hope that's a good thing. All right, so let's pray for the Trump Putin meeting next week Friday in Alaska. We don't know where in Alaska. Diomedes, maybe they may pick a very remote place just for security's sake. Diomedes, for example, can only be reached by helicopter, I think. Yeah. So in the wintertime, it can be reached by snowmobile because the ocean freezes. But I think during the summertime, it can only be reached by helicopter. That might be a good place. I don't know. Of course, there's no real structure there. They would have to take over somebody's home. So I don't know. They'll find something else. Maybe in Fairbanks, maybe in Anchorage. I don't know. Maybe in Nome. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Or Nome or Juneau. There are a number of places where they could meet. All right. Let's go to our next story. Oops. Oh no, I just okay. I just clicked on the wrong thing and I lost it. Hold on a second. Recently closed. Okay, here we go. What? Oh, come on now. Was it Trump, Alaska? Okay. Oh boy. I can't remember what it was. All right, well, let's go to Breitbart. I'm sure. Well, let's go to the news, actually. Google News. Okay, the Putin meeting. Let's go to see what the headlines are in Google News. Time magazine says Trump has the upper hand going into his meeting with Putin. Okay. And Trump gauges Europe's reaction to Putin's ceasefire offer. Of course, that means, the ceasefire offer is contingent on Putin keeping the Crimean Peninsula and Donbass region. And right, you'll halt war in exchange for Eastern Ukraine, Wall Street Journal, right? Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to a Breitbart. Let's see here. Dawn of New Era. DOJ launches Tish James bombshell. Yeah. Okay. So yes, we knew this was coming, and it certainly has. Okay. And Trump oversees signing of historic Azerbaijan-Armenian peace agreement. 35 years they fought, now they're friends. Yeah, so another war was stopped. And Catholic bishops compare ICE deportations to Nazis and slave catchers. Oh yeah, okay, here, this is what it was. This, okay. This is what I was going to do. All right, now I got it. Okay, so let me go back here. I was going to do the President Trump signing the executive order for the military to go after the cartels. And I was going to use, which one was, I think, oh, yeah, okay, I was going to use Al Jazeera on this one. Thank you, Father. Okay. U.S. sanctions Mexican cartel members, including rapper. Okay, that was not the one. Let's see. Let's just go with BBC. Yeah. So, in the 19th century, the U.S. also had a problem with some Mexican sort of bandits and so forth coming across the border and raiding U.S. homes and towns. And what eventually happened with that, this was before the Civil War. What eventually happened with that was that the U.S. has sent its military army into Mexican territory to put that down, to defeat those bandits and so forth. So maybe Scheinbaum is thinking about that kind of history. History is. There are some people who actually study history. Maybe it may not be taught very well in U.S. schools, but there are a lot of people who do study history in the world. Mexico has said U.S. military would not be entering its territory following reports that President Donald Trump had directed the Pentagon to target Latin American drug cartels. The United States is not going to come to Mexico with the military, President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Friday. We cooperate, we collaborate, but there is not going to be an invasion. That is ruled out, absolutely ruled out. New York Times reported on Friday that Trump had secretly signed a directive to begin using military force on foreign soil. In a statement to the BBC, the White House did not address the directive, but said that Trump's top priority is protecting the homeland. The reported directive appears to follow an executive order signed by Trump earlier this year, formally designating 8 drug cartels as terrorist entities, 6 of which are Mexican. Speaking to reporters, Scheinbaum said the Mexican government was informed that an order on the cartels was coming and that it had nothing to do with the participation of any military personnel. It is not part of any agreement, far from it. When it has been brought up, we have always said no, she said. Earlier this year, Scheinbaum told reporters that Trump's decision to designate cartels as terrorists cannot be an opportunity for the U.S. to invade our sovereignty. On Thursday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the designation would help the U.S. target cartels, including through intelligence agencies and the Department of Defense. Of course, the United States has sent military forces to places like Colombia, Bolivia, I think, to sort of help the government there, bring drug groups under control. And so it would not be a particularly new thing, but of course the difference with Mexico, of course, is that Mexico, being next to the United States, is, I think, historically been much more aware, much more sensitive to its sovereignty. And also, I'm pretty sure that Mexico thinks that it is sort of a cut above countries like Colombia, Bolivia, and so forth, and does not require foreign intervention in order to exercise sovereignty. But I'm sorry, Claudia, but you're not doing a very good job of it, though, are you? You're not doing a very good job of it, and it looks to me like you do need help. There's so much corruption. There's historically been so much corruption in Mexico, even going up to the presidency. I'm not casting aspersions on Scheinbaum herself, but certainly her predecessors have been shown to have been, certain predecessors have been shown to have been very corrupt and very much influenced by corruption from the cartels and from the drug money. But where is that money coming from? Coming from the United States. And so again, we can put military, on foreign soil and all that kind of stuff, but demand side, let's deal with the demand side, right? And how do you deal with the demand side? Well, you institute policies that are going to encourage, or at least stop discouraging heterosexual two-parent families. That's what you do. That's the first step. That's the first step. And you can do all sorts of drug education as well. Some of you may have had a similar experience, but I can remember sitting through in high school, sitting through these videos they used to show us of what the lungs look like when a person's been smoking for a long time. And they were pretty gruesome, right? Is that kind of education taking place in schools today about fentanyl and about cocaine, and about marijuana and stuff like that? I don't think it is. I don't think I remember. Of course, our kids have been out of high school now for, well, even the youngest one, going on 20 years. But even 20 years ago, I don't think that kind of education was taking place, was it? I didn't hear about it anyway. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's not having an effect. But those videos on smoking certainly had an effect on me. So, yes. So, but anyway, demand side, we need to really have an effort. Who was it? Was it Nancy Reagan? I think it was Nancy Reagan, was it? Who had a campaign that said, just say no, just say no. So that was pretty ineffective, but at least she was trying. At least she was trying. That was during the 1980s. Of course, looking back, was not effective at all. But you got to do something. You got to do something. And I think we need to educate people and to help families pass down their values, and first of all, give them good values, and then help them pass down those values to their children. And stop treating people as individuals and instead start treating them as members of families. The basic block of the kingdom of heaven is not the individual, it is the family. And this is very important. This is very important that, in our faith community, we are not trying to save individuals, we are trying to save families. Because it is only families that enter the kingdom of heaven. Individuals do not enter the kingdom of heaven. Only families enter the kingdom of heaven. I hope that's clear to everyone. Anyway, so that's the demand side. That's dealing with the demand side. In the Etonico Constitution, it is not allowed for the government to ban any, what's the expression? Intoxicating substance, I think is the expression, or something like that. So in the Etonico Constitution, in Etonico, it would be unconstitutional for the government to ban marijuana, cocaine, even fentanyl. But that is because the Etonico Constitution keeps the size of the government small. And when the government is small, families become larger and more powerful. People are depending on their families as a safety net, a welfare safety net. They're depending on their families for education, depending on their families for all kinds of things. So in a context where families are strong, then we can say that, okay, we're going to deal with this drug problem in the family. The state, the government should not be trying to do it. Because, hey, let's face it, the government has failed. War on drugs. drugs have won. And now we're talking about sending our military into foreign countries in order to help us deal with cartels and stop the drug problem. No, this is not a winning policy. It has to be coupled with attacking the demand side and stopping the flow of money back across the border as well. That's another aspect of it, because it's that money that is creating so much corruption in Mexico and in Colombia and in Ecuador and also in Venezuela, right? President Trump recently increased the bounty on Maduro of Venezuela, the sort of cryptomaniac president of Venezuela. He increased it to 50 million, but uh, the reason that Venezuela can even continue to exist is that there's a constant flow of drug dollars, narco dollars. Their own currency, the bolivar, is completely gone. It's not even worth the paper it's printed on. But they keep getting these dollars. Okay. And so it's that flow of dollars has to be stopped somehow. Maybe they plan to do that with the stable coin. I don't know. Maybe that's one reason for them to have these stable coin issues. But demand side, families, very, very important. And I'm afraid that President Trump is not really paying enough attention to that. And let's pray for him that he can understand this. Let's see here. The New York Times report says the directive signed by Trump provides an official basis for the possibility of direct military operations against cartels both at sea and on foreign soil. In recent months, Mexico has worked with the U.S. to curb the illegal flow of both migrants and drugs through the U.S.-Mexico border. June saw the lowest border crossings on record, according to data by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And last week, U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, Ronald Johnson, said fentanyl seizures at the border were down by over half. In a post on X, Johnson said, well, half is not a lot, really. It should be down by 99%. Half is, I suppose it's a good start, but it needs to increase a lot. In a post on X, Johnson celebrated the collaboration between Sheinbaum and Trump, writing that their leadership had resulted in cartels going bankrupt and our countries are safer because of it. So let's see, but yeah, come on now. Demand side. Yes. When Sheinbaum first came in, we tagged her as a socialist, and maybe she is, I don't know. But it looks like she is at least doing some good things for America, it looks like. Yeah. Okay, and then, okay. All right, let's see here. Texas. Okay. Texas, yeah, state politics are always very interesting and entertaining. Yeah, okay. But we're not going to go into that. Trump administration celebrates Maha victories first 200 days. Yes. And okay, right. Son assaults mother, horrifies onlookers at the happiest place on earth. Right. So I guess something happened in Disneyland, I guess. Okay. Okay. Stephen Colbert, he's on his way up. It's kind of a lame duck guy, but all right, let's go to Epic Times. Newsom says California will hold special redistricting election to counter Texas's plan. We will nullify what happens in Texas, say Governor Newsom told reporters. So Texas is planning to redraw their congressional districts in a way that's going to give the Republicans four or five more seats, they think. And California says, yeah, well, we can do that too. to give Democrats 4 or 5 more seats. I guess we'll see how that goes. And okay, there's Texas there. And this thing about NASA to put a nuclear reactor on the moon. Okay, I guess that's kind of the next step in space exploration. These drugs won't go down, won't soon go down. Here's why. Okay, yeah, drug prices in America. A lot of people have been talking about that for a long time, and it's certainly true that U.S. People in the U.S. pay a lot more for drugs or pharmaceuticals than people outside the U.S. That's certainly true. Okay, and now here, Armenia, Azerbaijan, at least for now. Farmers say super tax threatens thousands of family farms. Mounting debt taking a toll on health, nearly half of Americans say. This is Americans with their credit card debt, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, credit card debt continues to be the biggest hurdle for Americans, with 48% responding they struggled the most keeping up with monthly payments. I think this is something else that really needs to be taught in school and high school, sort of financial management. A new report from Wallet Hope finds that 55% of Americans believe they'll be stuck in debt for the rest of their lives. Nearly half, 47%, said mounting debt is affecting their health. 44% expect their household debt to increase over the next 12 months. Yeah. And I think I've shared before that my wife and I, we were in debt. We had a mortgage. We had car. I think, did we have 1 or 2 cars? I can't remember now. But anyway, we owed money on at least 1 car, and we also had credit card debt, which came about, frankly, because we were paying such a high mortgage. But at one point, God gave us the opportunity to get rid of all that debt. I won't go into details, but we had that opportunity and we took it. And since then, we've been living essentially without debt. I have a little bit of a credit card debt right now because and it's for strategic reasons, and it's well within something that I can manage. So, but certainly, I think people need to learn about the financial management that needs to be taught in school, and I don't think that's being taught at all. And it's not being taught because the government and the banks, of course, want us to be in debt, right? They want us to be paying huge interest rates to the banks. And so that's because it's debt right now. In America, well, I'm not sharing this, am I? In America, debt is the currency, and the country operates on debt, and that's why they don't want to go into a deflationary situation. According to the latest data from Federal Reserve Bank of New York, America's household debt soared more than $18.3 trillion in the second quarter. Mortgage balance is increased by 131 billion, totaling 12.94 trillion at the end of June, and auto loan balances grew by 13 billion to 1.66 trillion. We talk about the 37 trillion owned by the federal government, but this is another thing. Let's go to. We got to go to this place once in a while, right? usdebtclock.org, where it sort of brings together all these numbers. What's this? How come they have this thing here? How come they have this? What's this thing doing here? What's this supposed to be? Are we supposed to pay money or something now? Boy. They've never had this before. Okay. How do I get rid of it? Downloads. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I see. I'm downloading something. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. But all right. Well, anyway, 37 trillion in national debt. Okay. And will they let us see the credit card debt? Uh, uh, okay. Boy, I'm disappointed. They're trying to sell us something, it looks like. Okay, let's not bother with this. So anyway, household debt, big problem. The average U.S. household owed a total of $152,653 at the end of June, with nearly 2 in 5 people sharing that debt is a source of conflict within their household. And that's true. Debt or money in general is a big source of conflict for a lot of marriages. More than 2 in 3 believe the economy is not doing well as well as they had hoped. Credit card debt continues to be the biggest hurdle for Americans, with 48% responding that they struggle the most keeping up with monthly payments. Yet only 18% find mortgage payments challenging, and just 12% have difficulty managing auto loans. But they have 48% say they struggle keeping up with monthly payments, right? Well, for one thing, credit card debt has a much higher interest rate because it's unsecured. There's no collateral, whereas car loans and the home loans are collateralized. Wallet Hope analyst Chip Lupo told the Epoch Times that mounting credit card debt is not surprising as more people become reliant on them for everyday expenses. Traditionally, a credit card was used for emergencies or big ticket items like vacations or new furniture. He said today people are using them for things like gas, groceries, and even insurance and utility payments. Lupo also said rising costs over the past 4 years and the fact that wages have not kept up with inflation are contributors to America's debt problems. I think there's also so wages have not kept up with inflation, right? So what does it say? What does it say about inflation? It tells you that inflation hurts those who are working for wages, right? Not revenue from assets, not cash flow from assets. So the rich people, they get cash flow from their assets, but people middle class and lower, they're working for salaries and wages, and inflation is increasing faster than the wages, and so it's those are the people who are really being hurt by inflation. And so inflation is a tax. It's a tax against the middle class and the, shall I say, lower class, but anyway, but especially the middle class, those who are not getting government subsidies. I think there's also a financial literacy problem when it comes to credit cards, he said. Yes, they're easy to get, and too many people don't do their homework when they're applying for them. They don't know the interest rates, which are on average about 22% now. 22%, yes, average credit card, because the credit card is unsecured debt. When credit card holders make just a minimum monthly payment, that remaining debt carries not only interest charges, but the cost of any new purchases. Some people are even using the credit cards for fast food, so they may end up paying off those Big Mac years later, Lupo said. Ideally, Lupo noted consumers should make every effort to pay off the entire amount each month to avoid interest charges. If that's not possible, then they recommend paying off as much as they can. So I'm sure everybody's doing that already, paying off as much as they can. It's not surprising that so many people experience stress-related illness when monthly debt continues to pile up, he said. And Dr. Hamilton Jaiani, I guess, is that it? Chief Medical Officer at Fire Pit Health Fire Pit Health. What a name. In New Haven, Connecticut, told the Epoch Times that living with debt can often make people feel trapped, anxious, and even hopeless. It can lead to trouble sleeping, panic attacks, low self-esteem, and even depression. when people feel like, well, um, can I give my 2 cents? You got to live below your means, right? Um, you gotta, and that's really the way it is. And that may be, for example, what is your biggest expense, right? Your biggest expense is probably your mortgage. So then you need to step down to a cheaper house, or even to an apartment instead of having a house or even a townhouse. Move into an apartment, and perhaps even pay monthly rent instead of owning a house outright. And then you can take that equity cash that you get from selling your house and just dump it all into your credit card debt or other debt, card debt, other debt. And you may say, "Oh yeah, but if I invest it," well, no, because your expenses are set, right? And your revenue from investments is not set, and you don't know what's going to happen. And so, uh, I'm not giving financial advice, just speaking from my own experience, my own opinion. Okay. All right, gotta go, gotta go. Today's Saturday, so I will not be here tomorrow. I hope everybody has a good Sunday and worship the Lord. And I'll see you on Monday, and we will see what happens during the weekend. Okay. So God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.